and welcome to another edition of Flashback to the Track. As always, I'm James, and that's our boy Mark, and we're presented by Blue Emu. That's right, Blue Emu. They're there to give you soothing relief of your tired muscles and joints. So if you're feeling a little achy in that knee, or you don't like the way your elbow's feeling, why don't you slap some Blue Emu on that? But don't, because you're probably already hurting. So just gently apply and rub it in, and you'll get maximum relief. All right. So I don't know what you want to try with that. You can do the super strength if you want. Do maximum pain relief. I mean, there's a plethora of products you can try. And if you're feeling frisky, you can jump in a bath with a bath pod. Ooh, that's sensual right there.
Recovery bath with the power of real emu oil. James, what are we talking about on this week's Flashback to the Track podcast?
Well, you brought up an interesting event from the 2005 season, specifically the 2005 UAW-GM Quality 500. That is not the UAW Daimler Chrysler 400 or the UAW Ford Quality 500. No, it's GM. So that's right, the United Auto Workers of America, supporting the wonderful General Motors people. So yeah, it's cool. And it's a 500-mile race at Charlotte. A race I miss nowadays. Like, I've always loved the 500-mile races at Charlotte in the fall.
Yeah, man, they're awesome. I know now we have a Roval race, which I like too. Don't get me wrong, I like road course racing. But yeah, it was cool to have that night race at Charlotte on a Saturday night in the fall. Awesome. I always remember watching that one. And it was a really important race, James. It was part of the chase for the Nextel Cup.
Yeah, that's right. It's race 5 in the chase for the Nextel Cup. That means, you know what, Mark, we're halfway home in the 10-race chase, okay? But throughout 2005, it's been a roller coaster of a season, all right? As a Jeff Gordon fan, I started out in the highest of highs, man. Super G won the Daytona 500, and then he went on a tear. He won at Martinsville, won at Talladega, and it seemed like Jeff Gordon was just going to be the championship favorite. But, that was not the case at all.
May 1st, he really fell off a cliff and things just didn't go super well, had a lot of poor finishes. And then we had, Greg Biffle had his coming out party, man. He actually won every week, the week after Jeff Gordon won. So he was just like following him up. He won California, he won Darlington. So he was having a really good season. He, won a lot of races that year, 5 races during the 26 race regular season. But the man, James, that everyone has their eye on midway through 2005 is Tony Stewart and that number 20 Home Depot Joe Gibbs racing team. Tony and crew chief Greg Zipadelli. Well, they went on like an absolute tear during the summer months. They won 5 out of 7 races from June to August, including the Brickyard 400. And following that 26th race at Richmond, we have our chase for the Nextel Cup grid set.
Yeah, and within that grid, of course, Tony Stewart, Mr. Summer, bring the heat. He's on it. Greg Biffle, as always, he's in the chase. Rusty Wallace, competing in his final season of Cup competition, made the chase. Jimmy Johnson makes the chase. Kurt Busch, defending series champion. Mark Martin, who was supposed to be retiring but said psych and came back, is in the chase. Jeremy Mayfield didn't pull a Mayfield to get in, but he had a really strong 2005 season, culminating with him making the chase for the Nextel Cup. Matt Kenseth and Ryan Newman round out our field. And Ryan Newman really started off the chase strong, man. He was like the bottom seed, just barely got in at race 26. And then he comes into New Hampshire and just wins that race, which was a really big momentum push for him coming in. And then it just set the tone for how wacky the chase would be, especially up to race 5 right now.
And how dare you disrespect Carl Edwards, James? He was in there too, all right? Carl Edwards, all right? The rookie, but not really a rookie because he doesn't qualify to be a rookie, but he's a rookie.
Yeah, he ran too many races in 2004, unfortunately, but it's his first full-time season in Cup.
Yeah, and we had some up and downs, all like we said, all throughout the 26-race regular season. Matt Kenseth looked like he was going to be out. Then he wins the night race at Bristol, gets back in there. All 5 Roush cars made the chase. Unbelievable. He has basically a 50% chance to win the championship because of one of his 5 cars. But we said Jeff Gordon missed the chase. Dale Earnhardt Jr., after having the strongest year of his career in 04, winning 6 races, misses the chase. So 2 fan favorites not there at the end of the season. So
Yeah, but there's still something to fight for, and that was 11th place in the championship standings. I think it was new this year, specifically for 2005, but the 11th place points finisher received a $1 million bonus at the end and would actually be invited to New York at the Waldorf Astoria for the championship banquet. So they did get recognized, even though they weren't in the top 10, which I thought was kind of a nice thing. And as a Jeff Gordon fan, it gave me something to look forward to, because it could be very deflating to see that your driver didn't make the postseason or the chase, and it sucks because sometimes you're like, well, what are they out there fighting for other than race victories, because they're not in this championship battle.
And if you're not familiar, like with the chase for the Nextel Cup, the way it worked back then, we'll quickly explain it. We might have already figured it out, but currently, we have the playoff format. Back then, there was 26 race regular season. The top 10 in points at the end of the 26 got their points reset to a way higher number that no one would be able to catch them. They were all separated by 5-point increments, and whoever has the most points at the end of the final 10 races is your Nextel Cup champion. So much simpler, but still a little bit different than a traditional full season championship like they have in F1 or IndyCar.
And if anything proves right, 2004's inaugural season of the chase really produced a nail biter. I believe 5 drivers went into Homestead with a championship, or with a mathematical chance of winning the championship. So that obviously was a success in its first year. So NASCAR's looking for the same kind of magic in the second year of the chase.
So, like we said, 5th race of the chase for the Nextel Cup, the UAW-GM Quality 500. At the conclusion, we'll be at the halfway point. First 4 races saw 3 different chase drivers win. Ryan Newman won New Hampshire, Jimmy Johnson at Dover, Mark Martin won Kansas. So coming into Charlotte, Tony Stewart has a 75-point lead over Ryan Newman.
Now at Charlotte, at this point, it was the house that Jimmy built. It's currently the Lowe's Motor Speedway, and the Lowe's driver was on a historic run. At this point, he had won 4 of the last 5 races in the Cup Series at Lowe's Motor Speedway, including the previous 3 races consecutively. But the thing about Johnson was he had a lot of success in Cup. Didn't always translate to the Xfinity car or Busch Series car back when he ran it, even for just some one-off starts. He actually ran a one-off start in the Busch race the previous day, or night actually, and unfortunately he was one of the 18 cars that were caught up in an incident that actually had to retire from the race. It was a wreck fest caused from tires and racing incidents, and that saw 1/3 of that race run under caution, which was crazy. Even Tony Stewart, when he did a test session earlier a couple weeks before, actually wrecked twice at the track.
Yeah, so an important note that comes into play later is that between the Coke 600 and tonight's race, the track had been diamond ground, and this is a process known as levigation. And what this does is, rather than repave, you'd grind the track down to take some of the bumps away. It's very popular. They do it in F1 all the time. And Lowe's was last paved in 1994. So this kind of gave it a new racing surface. And it's clear from the Busch Series race, it's been very difficult for the drivers to get a handle on, and we're having some tire issues.
Yes, but we'll see how that will play out. Now, going into this race, Elliott Sadler won the pole, which was kind of cool because didn't they do that on Friday nights? Like they had a big pole night.
I think it was Thursday night.
Thursday nights?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because Friday night was the Xfinity race. So yeah.
Busch Series night in America.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool that, they had a big turnout for that. And it meant a lot to win the pole because you had to set a blistering fast lap time like Elliott did at 193.2 miles an hour. Whew, that's a fast average lap time right there. Now, 6 of the 10 chase contenders have a top 10 starting spot, which is great because then, you're in the top 10. It's a good start. Now, just finish in the top 10. But Ryan Newman was the highest starting chaser, starting on the outside of the front row.
Jimmy Johnson, though, our man, that the Lowe's Motor Speedway is his house, as he said. He's going to have to start at the back because they changed an engine after qualifying, and this is back in the impound race days. There was no practice after qualifying, no changes allowed, so he needs to start all the way at the back.
Which is a bummer because he qualified 3rd, so he's given up that nice 3rd starting position and going to the back. Now, there was a competition caution that NASCAR wanted to throw at lap 30, and this was due to just teams and drivers having that concern over tire wear. NASCAR, Goodyear wanted to check tire wear and make sure everything was looking good. And it's a packed house at Lowe's Motor Speedway, the hometown race for fans, drivers, teams, what have you. It's NASCAR's home track. And 165,000 fans were in attendance at Lowe's Motor Speedway for this race on this day.
James, it's time now to dive into one of our favorite, if not our favorite portion of the Flashback to the Track podcast. Strange starters.
All right, so first strange starter on our list. How about a guy we've actually talked to before, Stuart Kirby. He's driving a number 51 Marathon Chevy for Competitive Edge Motorsports. He's our guy. We're always pulling for him, no matter what, because he's the man. Now, he ran a few races that season after a short ARCA and Busch Series career, but, you can find out more about Stuart Kirby on our previous episode of Flashback to the Track, so go check that out.
Up next is Johnny Sotter, and he's driving the number 09 Mikasuki Gaming and Resorts Dodge for Phoenix Racing. He made quite a few starts actually that year in that James Finch-owned Cup car while being a full-time Busch Series driver for Phoenix Racing. So making some one-off starts. Actually had a top 10 at Phoenix back in the spring. So Johnny in the Cup Series.
Next up, it's a name you know now, but back then it was like, who? Denny Hamlin, the number 11 FedEx Express Chevy for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is Hamlin's second ever Cup Series start. It was a very tumultuous year for the inaugural 11 teams season in Cup. Jason Leffler started out the season. Very inconsistent results, missed a lot of races. Unfortunately, he was out of the car, and Joe Gibbs actually put Denny in the car, and it was really cool to see that they were taking a shot on this young talent that was really no offense, but he was a nobody at this time.
Up next, we have Kevin Lepage, the wily veteran. If you need to get your car in the field, go get Kevin Lepage. He's driving the number 66 Peak Fitness Ford for Peak Fitness Racing. Now, this was an interesting team. It was started by the owner of Peak Fitness, Jeff Steck, to promote his gyms and his supplement brand, EAS. And he used a bunch of different drivers that year, but now the team's hitting a bit of a stride after they got Lepage. He had some really strong qualifying runs, especially on 1.5 mile tracks, including a 6th place qualifying run at the previous race at Kansas.
Very nice. Up next, we have David Stremme in the number 39 Commit Dodge for Chip Ganassi Racing. Now, Stremme was running a partial schedule in Cup in 2005. He competed full-time in the Xfinity Series, driving the number driving for, I believe, was it a Ganassi developmental deal, or what was that going on when he was in Xfinity Series?
He was a Ganassi development deal through Fitz Bradshaw Racing. So
that's right. Yeah, because it was weird. They swapped from Chevys to Dodges that season. So yeah, he's had a bit of a career at this point in the Busch Series, and now he's coming up. He's going to transition into the Cup Series the next season. So Chip's trying to get him some seat time in these long Cup races.
And up next, we have the pride of Zephyr Hills, Florida himself, David Rudeman. He is making his Cup Series debut in the number 00 State Fair Corn Dogs Chevy for Michael Waltrip Racing. And it's, like I said, it's his Cup debut. He's a full-time Truck Series driver at the time for Michael's brother Daryl and his team. And Michael fielded a Cup car actually quite a few times that season for like Kenny Wallace and Johnny Benson. So, the precursor to the full-time Michael Waltrip Racing Cup Series program.
Next up, we have Mike Bliss in the number 0 Net Zero Chevy for Haas CNC Racing. Now, Mike is back full-time in the Cup Series for the first time since 2000. He's our Strange Starter highlight. We've highlighted him in the Strange Starter series, and it's really cool to see that he's in the Cup Series. He's got some competitive equipment, especially since Haas CNC Racing has that Hendrick affiliation.
And the final guy we'll mention is just Mike Wallace. He's driving the number 4 Lucas Oil Chevy for Morgan McClure, and it's his first full-time Cup season since 2001. James, on to the broadcast of this race, and this is a classic NBC broadcast.
Yeah, it is. In the booth, we have the man who is as creative as, I don't know who, Bill Weber, and he's up there with the legend himself, Benny Parsons, and another legend in his own right, Wally Dallenbach Jr. Love you, Wally.
And on pit road, we have a full pit road with Marty Snyder, Dave Burns, Matt Yoakum, and the man himself, Alan Bestwick. 4 pit reporters, James, because it is the chase, and we have to pull out all the stops for coverage.
Well, here's the thing. NBC stands for 2 things, in my opinion. One of those is nothing but coverage.
And what's the other one? It's like National Broadcasting Corporation. It doesn't matter. Let's get into
Oh, no,
the
we'll
race.
find that out later in the race, Mark. Trust me, we'll find that out later.
Did you know the logo's a peacock? I didn't know that until like 2 years ago. Race notes, though. We'll get into the race. It's going to be a fun one. Elliott Sadler's going to lead the field to green, but Ryan Newman, man, gets a jump on him, takes the lead because he wants to lead a lap early to get those 5 bonus points you get for leading a lap. But we get drama right away. Robbie Gordon blows a tire in the tri-oval, and chase contender Jimmy Johnson has to make some evasive action to avoid running into Robbie. You get a great onboard look at the ducking and diving, and caution is out as the carcass of Robbie's tire is rolling around on the track.
Now, before we really get further into it, you might be wondering, wait a minute, whoa, this race just started. Yeah, that's right. There was no pre-race show because a Notre Dame game ran a little too long, but fortunately, NBC was able to cut right to the coverage just as the green flag fell, so very nice. But under this caution, Wally Dallenbach Jr. is going to explain the issues the drivers are going to be facing with this brand new surface at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
It's a challenge for the drivers because, like I said, the track is very fast. There used to be bumps up in 3 and 4. There used to be a very wide groove here. You could run right up at the top. We don't have that yet. So the cars are having to go down in the corner about halfway up the racetrack to the bottom. So when a car goes side by side, if you're on the bottom, you lose the aerodynamics on your car, which wants to make the car either spin out or actually takes the downforce off the nose. Sometimes you'll slide up the racetrack into the guy above you. So you got to be careful. You can't get away from a guy that's just so fast around here, BP.
Great insight from Wally. We're back to green, though, lap 7, and we check in on Jeff Gordon, and we talked about his struggles this season early. He's struggling early in this race, sliding back through the field after starting the top 10. And, he's basically got nothing to fight for but that 11th place finish in points. But pretty good consolation prize, $1 million. So
they call him Mr. Moneyman for a reason. But Elliott Sadler, he's showing that he wants to be the spoiler right now, being a driver who's not in the chase, but who wants to win this race. He goes and takes the lead on lap 22. Now, chase competitor Ryan Newman, though, has to pit under green. He's got a bad vibration. And, it kind of stems back to the whole impound rule. You got to, not touch the car at all. Well, maybe if you would have noticed that, you might have noticed that the big chunk of rubber came out of the right front tire. That's insane that, that chunk was missing. I can't believe that he just didn't blow out, Mark. Just looking at that tire on the broadcast, it's insane that there's a giant piece missing from that tire.
25 laps in, and we've already had 2 competitors have tire issues. So is that foreshadowing? We get the competition caution on lap 32, right as chase competitor Tony Stewart takes the lead, gets his 5 bonus points. Now, under this caution, everybody comes down pit road because they all want to check tire wear, and we get our favorite, the crew cam. Benny Parsons loves the crew cam. We get DJ Richardson, the rear tire changer for Rusty Wallace.
Ooh, he's doing work flawlessly. Now, before we go back racing, let's enjoy a Bank of America Higher Standards moment.
Now, this week's Bank of America Higher Standards moment.
Jimmy Johnson on the outside, side by side, and down to the stripe. Jimmy Johnson will win by a half a car length. That's right, my house.
That was a moment right there. What a side-by-side, right to the line. Back to racing on lap 36. Now, we've learned from some of our pit reporters that there are the rear tires specifically throughout the field were badly blistered. And this is going to be an issue that we might see throughout the race, but we haven't really heard anything about the front tires. We're hearing a lot of issues about the rear tires right now.
Yeah, and teams are starting to talk about, maybe we back our pace down and make the tires last a little bit. Right as that happens, though, we get Jeff Gordon making hard contact with the wall in turn 4, and he has to take it to the garage. Looks like his car was a little bit too tight, and he picked up an aero push behind Bobby Labonte. So not a tire problem, just had some issues. Those things happen.
Yeah, it happens, but unfortunately, as Jeff Gordon fan 2005, this was just like icing on the cake. Just, wow, another mile and a half, another dismal performance, and not even going to be contender. He's out. He had a big brake rotor that he actually broke in the right front, and that really just sent him to the garage. So his night is over, unfortunately.
And just as we hear from Jeff, Dale Jr., hard hit, knocks down the wall in the tri-oval after blowing a right front tire. Like, this is a vicious hit, James, like the way he hits. And also under the caution caused by that, Matt Kenseth has a flat, and it tore some of the sheet metal off the right front of his car. So it's just like tire woes to the absolute max, and it's happening like clockwork. Every 30 laps, somebody has a tire problem.
Well, we'll see if it continues, but luckily for Junior, at least he was in the tri-oval when that blew, and he'll say it himself. I'd rather be on the straightaway when it blows than in the corner. Now, there's a bit of drama during the pit stops because Tony Stewart has a miscommunication on the radio and accidentally stays out on the track, where Ryan Newman decides to take some extra fuel, unfortunately, out of the pit box as he drags his fuel can down pit road. That is a penalty, and he's going to have to come back and serve it.
And let's add some positive vibes, though, James. So Dave Burns is with our Nextel Fan of the Week, Lieutenant Colonel Randy Buckner, who found a way to get Dale Jr. to visit the South Pole. Sort of.
Hey, everybody, Junior's on the pole! Well, it's not exactly what you're thinking. You see, he's actually on the South Pole thanks to our newest Nextel Fan of the Week presented by Sprint, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Randy Buckner. Now, Randy, why was this flag flying over the South Pole?
Every time I deploy, I take a little piece of NASCAR with me, and had the opportunity to go to the South Pole and took the opportunity to fly this flag there.
So how do you celebrate NASCAR? Well, tell us about it. Log on to NASCAR.com/Nextel.
Now we have a restart on lap 68. Elliott Sadler leads. Mark, it's just like clockwork. Let's count it down from 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, there's a caution. 28 laps later, on lap 96, Bobby Hamilton Jr. is going to lose his right front tire and smack the turn 4 wall. Didn't make it the 30 mark.
No, because, James, we're basically out here playing Russian roulette at this point. Someone's going to blow a tire after 30 laps, and as a driver, you just pray that it's one of the other 42 guys and not you. So, as Greg Biffle put it, we're not racing to win. We're racing to finish.
Yeah, he was not very happy on his radio communication when he said that. But under caution, Benny and Wally explain exactly what Goodyear has told them and the teams to possibly be a remedy for this tire situation, but it's an odd one. They want the teams to put scuffed tires on their car, 15, 20 lap scuffed tires, specifically on the rears, which is interesting. Let the tires go through a heat cycle and then let them cool and then put them back on the car, and their wear should be better.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if a lot of teams have 15 to 20 lap scuffed tires. That's really the issue. So most teams just going with stickers every time. So back to green, lap 101. Greg Biffle is our leader, but he goes backwards in a hurry. He's just very loose, really struggling to find grip. And then we check in with Mark Martin, his teammate, who's been mired in the back and he's beginning to lose his patience with some other competitors.
Always behind these crack hogs. All these guys are in my way. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to pass this 0-1. 40 times, I guess.
That's like classic Mark Martin. Classic Mark Martin.
No, I mean, like, his pit crew just, man, he goes on pit road and he gets pushed back and he's like, now I got to pass all these people again. He's probably sick and tired of racing Joe Nemechek, but hey, man, sometimes you just can't get away from certain drivers. You're like magnets out there. Now, we also check in on one of our chase contenders, actually two of them, Carl Edwards and Jeremy Mayfield, who are really struggling. They're trying to find that balance in their car. And unfortunately, like Mark, who's mired back, they're mired back even further because they're in the 30s right now, trying to salvage what they can. It's very early, though, so let's see if they can get back up towards the front.
And now we have to have the commentator's curse. Marty Snyder has just told us how great a night Sterling Marlin is having, and he's on pace for a top 10. One lap later, Marlin loses a right front tire and smacks the wall. Caution is out, lap 125. Just 24 laps this time before we had a tire problem.
Yeah, and it's one of those moments and realizations now that this is going to be a race where we're going to have to watch and see who's going to blow a tire out next. There's not going to be pit strategy. There's not going to be long runs. There's not going to be incredibly crazy side-by-side hard racing because everyone needs to make sure they're managing their tires. And it's really interesting because we hear from Sterling Marlin after his contact and his comments about the fact that it's almost like the 1988 tire wars. That's something he faced and actually drove in at Charlotte during the Coke 600. It's just like that. You're just seeing your competitors blow tires left and right, and it's all about who can manage them and who's smart enough to know when it is time to race and when it's just time to save your tires.
And as James said, pit strategy, we're starting to think like, man, there's not going to be any pit strategy. They're just going to take 4 tires, But Ryan Newman's team felt like, you know what, why not? They're going to take just left sides, just right sides, because we haven't seen any issues with left sides tonight other than Robbie Gordon's tire on lap 4. So maybe 2 tire stops are a thing. If the right sides are the issue, maybe we just take rights.
Well, here's the thing too, Mark. Where was Ryan running? He was running in the back. He wasn't trying to charge his way through the field, so he's definitely saved his right side tires. So why not pull a little strategy move to get yourself track position? But we're going to go back green on lap 131, and we're starting to see this field shake up because rookie Kyle Busch, has made his way to the front for the first time all night, and he's leading. He's got a dominant car. Unfortunately, he's only going to make it 21 laps before he blows a right front tire. Might have drove that 5 car a little too hard while leading, and we're going under caution. But, that was just perfect timing because NBC just came back from a commercial break. NBC, nothing but commercials.
Hey everybody, do you ever have tired muscles like this one right here? I've been working out a little bit, and just some aching joints, after a long day of activity, doing those chin-ups and riding your bike? If so, our friends at Blue Emu have you covered with a wide variety of maximum strength products that work fast and are completely odorless. That's right, you won't stink. Be sure to check out Blue Emu in its brand new look at major retailers near you. For maximum strength relief, gotta go with Blue Emu. Now let's get back to the podcast.
James, Ryan Newman's gambles really paid off. He's got back in the top 10 with the 2 tire stops and now retains that track position as the full field comes down pit road. So good call by his crew chief. I believe it was Matt Borland at the time was Ryan Newman's crew chief. So great call, man.
Yeah, his OG crew chief. I believe that was the crew chief he started with back when he was doing the whole ABC program. But we're going to go back to green on lap 156. Now, Casey Mears, he pulls strategy, and he's going to take 2 tires and be the leader. Tony Stewart, though, he's concerned about these tires issues. He's been going 100% the entire time in the Home Depot Chevy. And in fact, he went from 4th to 1st in just 5 laps after the restart.
An interesting thing to note here is a little bit of a teammate strategy. Jeff Gordon, who crashed out earlier, he's back on track on lap 141, and he's actually scuffing tires for his 2 Hendrick Motorsports teammates, Brian Vickers and Jimmy Johnson.
Now that's how you do it, Mark. That's how you scuff tires. Because I remember at Chicagoland, Terry Labonte in the 44 was actually doing that for the Hendrick Motorsports cars. He wasn't in contention, but he would come in the pits every 5 to 10 laps because he was scuffing tires.
Teamwork, man.
Exactly. But we got some great racing up front. Unfortunately, it's interrupted on lap 173 because this time it's Kevin Harvick. Man, he's going to hit the outside wall in that sweet-looking snap-on good wrench Chevy. It's just a shame that sweet-looking car is now destroyed.
And only took 18 laps that time for somebody to have a right front tire failure. But you know what? Let's take a break from the race to enjoy the greatest segment ever, Wally's World, featuring Blake Bell, promoting the new show on NBC, Service, which I've never heard of, but sure.
Wally's World,
from the show on NBC called Surface.
Hi.
Welcome aboard.
So Surface is about these like three strangers. They have a close encounter with an alien species at the bottom of the ocean.
On the promos for your show, they say, the fate of the world is in your hands. That's how you should feel about me right now.
Right. Oh my God. They say a lot of women scream on your show. I am not screaming.
What's this?
That's the wall. That's the wall.
I want to assure you that this is a very safe racetrack. They don't wreck on this place.
What? I feel incredibly safe and in good hands with you, sir.
Go ahead, finish your thoughts.
Oh, God. Hang on.
Now, Lake, is this what you thought it would be like?
Yes. No. No. No, it's not what I thought it would be like, sir. No, not at all.
You don't get out of the car until you say, I love Wally's World.
I freaking love Wally's World, okay?
You can get out.
I wonder if it lasted more than a season.
You know what? We should probably... Jamie, could you look into that for us? That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, now we're going to get to some more fun times because we have drama. Chad Knaus is going to tell us all about some voltage issues that he's having. In fact, he might have to change a battery on Jimmy Johnson's number 48.
How bad of a problem is the voltage issue, Chad?
It's a bit of an issue at this point. We don't really know exactly what's going on. It's starting to charge back up again, so we don't know if it was just an overdraw. We tried to take some extra precautions with the Lowe Chevrolet today and put some tire blowers on there to try to prevent some of these tire issues, and it may have been a little bit too much of a draw. We don't exactly know what's going on, but it's starting to charge the system back up, and Jimmy's pretty comfortable with the car. We've got a very fast race car. We're just being cautious with it. We want to make sure that we're there at the end with still 155 laps to go. There's no need to go out there and try to lead laps. Obviously, we've seen people run up front and hit the wall. We don't need to do that right now.
Yeah, well, not great. But even with that, he's having a pretty good day, man. Working his way through the field after that engine change. So, you know, things are looking all right for the 48 car. I think they'll be fine.
Uncharacteristically quiet, but you know what? Sometimes quiet can be good. But we're going to also hear from Happy Harvick during this caution, who isn't too happy, especially about the way things are going tonight with all these tire issues, because he's going to chat with Matt Yoakum, his boy.
Kevin Harvick, one of those drivers running up front and hitting the wall. You predicted this last night.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious to see, after the test and everything that happened down here with I don't even know what it is, the tires, racetrack, speeds, you name it. But just pretty bad that they're putting all the competitors in this position. I was just running 75, 80%. So, it's just really, really bad and really embarrassing.
This is unbelievable, you said.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. It's just every 30 laps the tires blow out. So I hope everybody's proud of the position they put all the drivers and the sponsors in tonight.
Mark, I'm serious. I wouldn't be happy if I would have wrecked and my car looked that good. I mean, come on. You wrecked such a sweet looking race car.
It's a painful thing, man, when you wreck a really nice paint scheme. Like, wrecking's bad enough, but when you have a beautiful car, it's even worse. We're going to go back racing, though. It doesn't seem like we're racing a lot, but we are. We're going to go back to lap 180. Tony Stewart's got the lead, and Marty Snyder lets us know there's a bit of a swap meet going on behind the pit wall as teams make deals for sets of sticker tires, buying them from teams that have fallen out of the race. Now, if you've ever been able to be in the pits during a race, this is actually something that happens a lot. If you ever have a hot pass and you get to stand there, you'll see teams go to teams that fell out of the race and try and buy their tires from them, because why not get another set of stickers, man? Especially in a race like this where everyone's blowing them out. It's like they're a hot commodity.
Oh, yeah, and also, too, something they're looking for are the same codes on the tires, because all those tires have barcodes, and they're trying to get sets that match, because you want to keep giving your driver the same good sets of tires instead of saying, like, oh, boy, we put a bad set of tires on that last pit stop, and then you just fall back. So, unfortunately, but fortunately, there's a cool silent auction going on in the pits, which is kind of cool. Now, during the last stop, several teams were able to pull this strategy of putting white side tires on the car again. And of those, Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace were among them. And it just seems to be working right now, Mark. It seems like two tires could be the way to go.
Yeah, they're really only worried about the right sides, right? So if we can do, a 4-tire run and then come down, change the rights, like it's gonna be an interesting way it plays out later on. About 130 laps to go. So lap 201, we get a surprise competition caution from NASCAR as they're a little bit concerned about more tire failures.
Yeah, and their reason for this competition caution is to make sure that everybody's on the same air pressures, because Goodyear has a recommended air pressure for these tires to be run at. And knowing crew chiefs, they don't like to listen to Goodyear because Goodyear's air pressures don't make their cars go that fast. So you put a lower air pressure in, the car's going to go faster. And we actually get a really great insight about this from Doug Richards, Greg Biffle's crew chief during the caution.
Well, earlier I heard him say they needed to be 50 pounds, which is recommended on the right front. Well, in my world, I've been 50 pounds all year at this racetrack, okay, because we've been playing it conservative. What it was is the difference in our gauge and the NASCAR gauge that it's about 0.6 of a pound off. So I had to increase my air pressure just so I wouldn't take a chance of losing points if I ever did blow a tire. It's not something we want to do with the National Guard Ford, but he's pretty happy with the car. On a good note, the guys are performing great here in the pits. We just don't know how hard to run. We got to get to the end of the race, and it's important for the points, so looking to the end.
It's a safety measure, but is it a fair step to you race teams?
Well, whatever's fair. I mean, we shouldn't have to be doing this kind of game anyhow, I guess. We don't like to race like this. I'd rather be out there telling them, run as hard as you can and go. I mean, he says he can run a half a second faster right now anytime he wants. So, well, maybe we can save that for the end of the race and maybe be okay.
And Greg was not very happy about the timing of this caution either, and really upset about that with NASCAR.
Well, it's actually interesting, too. We'll hear from one of Michael Waltrip's crew chiefs, crew members, that they're actually running their tires 2 pounds lower than the recommended air pressure. So I know Doug's playing by the rules, but everybody else isn't, Doug. I'm sorry, buddy. And also, under this caution, we're going to cue the Duck Man.
Hey, Bill, maybe the Duck can figure out what's going on around here. Why don't we cue him?
It's quite an outfit right there.
It is.
That's a lame duck.
But he's going to beat the traffic, though. Time for our Aflac Trivia question. The first driver to win 4 straight super speedway races at one track.
Man. That's a tough question. I don't know. I surrender.
Bill Elliott at Michigan, where he's been very successful.
I didn't understand the question.
Aflac Trivia question. That's the best part of the race. I actually didn't know that answer. Even when I rewatched it, I was like, oh man, I must be like David Pearson or somebody, but no, it's Bill Elliott.
Oh. So James, it's fast becoming a race where you're seeing NASCAR have to adapt and kind of make changes as we go to prevent like further issues on track. So it's a really interesting race, man. I don't remember a race like this in recent memory at the time, one where we had so many issues. So it's really the prevailing theme, unfortunately, and we're not getting a lot of like actual racing.
Well, I mean, it is racing, but you just have to race the racetrack, I guess, at this point. Your competition, you shouldn't worry about them. It's about trying to make it to the finish. Kind of like Greg Biffle said, it's all about making it to the finish, because to finish first you must finish. And as we finish, we're going to go back to racing. Lap 207, Tony Stewart is still your leader, the dominant guy on the field. But how about Michael Waltrip, Mark? He's up to third, and he's really got a great car. DEI dialed in the 8 and the 15 for this race, and Michael is just having a great run. He ran great in May during the Coke 600, and he really wants to score one more victory for his DEI crew.
Yeah, and Rusty Wallace then comes into the pits because he thinks his right rear is going down, which Wally says might not be it. Like sometimes you just have like low air pressure when you get started and you kind of feel like maybe you have a tire going down when you get loose. But Rusty caught it. He did have a tire going down, so tough break. Just as that happens, Elliott Sadler makes a smart decision and gives second place to Michael Waltrip. Just moves over because you know what? He's way faster than me.
That's not only that, I think Elliott just knows he should save his tires. And just as we think about that, going into turns 3 and 4, Tony Stewart loses a right rear tire. The leader backs it into the turn 4 fence. Man, what's happening here, dude? Like, no one is safe. At this point, the guy who was going 100% earlier, now he's found his weakness and he's up in the wall. Ugh, that's a shame, dude.
Yeah, you really don't want to lead this race. Kyle Busch and now Tony Stewart have both had tire issues while leading. Just not the place you want to be. You want to just lay low, run slow, and survive. But we get some pit stops under this caution, and Mark Martin and Jimmy Johnson are going to go right side tires only, even after watching tires blow out. Wow, we only need two.
Well, I mean, if the right sides are the issue, the right sides are the issue. And also, Alan Bestwick, he's going to get the inside scoop on exactly what happened to Tony Stewart's tire, because it wasn't the fact that his tire was worn. He actually ran over something on the track and punctured it, which caused it to blow out. And you could just see how quickly he swapped ends. He had no way to save that car.
Back to green on lap 222, and the top 9 cars stayed out on the racetrack with Michael Waltrip as the leader. So now we're going to we're not going to pit. We're just going to stay out because fuel mileage is not an issue at all, because we're not ever going to run more than 20 laps with another caution. So Michael Waltrip, Elliott Sadler, they go back and forth through the lead. Really nice to see some non-chase competitors running really well in a race. They've got pride to fight for, James. They still matter, even though they're not in that championship chase.
No, their sponsors, team owners, all their fans, they want to see them do well, and they're out there doing it. But the caution is going to come out on lap 245. David Stremme knocks down the turn 4 wall. Man, that's a bummer. He was having a top 10 run at that point. But you know what? The right front tire just didn't want to last, and he blows it. Caution is out. Now, during this caution, it's just a caution. So, nothing really happened. It wasn't long enough of a run to really see anything happen for strategy wise, but everyone who stayed out obviously has to come in and pit now, Mark. So I don't know, do you think it's worth it to stay out and run a cycle and then get back into traffic, or what do you think?
I'm conservative. I'm taking 4 tires every time. I think it's the right thing to do. This is a game of survival, man. If I'm the crew chief, I'm taking 4 tires every time we get a chance to.
Well, some guys got 4 on that one. We're going to go back to green on lap 252. Now, Ryan Newman is your leader. He barely won the race off pit road, edging Elliott Sadler right at the line. And that was a really good race off pit road. It's the most underrated race in the race, is always the race on pit road.
It's very important, man. It's a team sport. If you get your man off pit road fast, you make up seconds in the pits, James, and you make up tenths on the racetrack.
It's easier to pass them in the pits than it is on the track sometimes.
100%, but right after that restart, Elliott Sadler loses a right rear in front of the entire field in turn 3 and backs it into the fence. Mike Bliss is caught up in the aftermath trying to slow down. He wrecks his car. Give a shout out to Dave Blaney, though. The man avoids Sadler, and he stays in the race in that Jack Daniels Chevy.
Yeah, he could have easily just been all up in them M&Ms, but you know what? He used his brakes, people, that, middle pedal.
No, if Days of Thunder
not the clutch.
Anything, just gas it, drive through the smoke, you'd be good to go.
But anyways, NASCAR is going to display a red flag after this because, it's a shame that Sadler was up front and it was just literally 2 laps after the restart, he blows a tire. He obviously ran over some debris that was either on the apron, somewhere on the racing surface, or off the racing surface. NASCAR is going to take this opportunity and throw a red flag clean off the racing surface. And during this red flag, we get to hear from the greatest pitchman in NASCAR history, and the guy running in second at this point, Michael Waltrip.
Hey, Michael Waltrip, Benny Parsons, you got me?
Yeah, Benny, and I know you knew there was a risk of this when you came to my car, but I got to think Napa, the best place to get parts. Domino's, 555 Deal, Best Western, Oreo Cookie, Klausner Furniture, and all my sponsors. Tony Gibson is the man. He has just put a setup in his car I love. And let me tell you something else. Don't ever doubt Goodyear. We are just abusing these tires, running way faster than we should on them. Go get your tires from Goodyear. They're the best. Now, that commercial's over. Could I help you with anything?
Did he say Coke?
No, you didn't say anything about Coca-Cola, Michael.
Ah, darn it. Coca-Cola, Remington, Bass Pro.
Oh,
all those people.
Tell him he's on camera,
wants
too.
to know if I want water.
Oh.
I'm talking on TV.
Hey, Michael, tell me about the car. It's unbelievably fast tonight.
I keep having a blister on my right rear, so it could blow that out and crash, but also could win this race, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
I mean, is that where you are, Michael? You have to take a chance on blowing a tire to go out and try to win the race?
Well, I don't know any other way around it. We've been as conservative as we can. We'll try to run. We got basically what amounts to a couple of 38, 39 lap runs, and we've made it that far before on tires, so we have every reason to believe that we can get to the finish. But, it's always a doubt in your mind as to what's going to happen. This car, though, Benny, is just so good on the tires. I haven't chattered them. I haven't pushed them. I just have to guard against being a little bit loose on the restarts for a couple laps. That's why Elliott got around me, and I know that's the smart way to be, and I've just been as calm as I can be, but I can't say enough about my crew. And plus, are you looking?
Yeah, I'm watching.
The best I've had all year long, and Darnhart Incorporated is a great team, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Michael, what percent are you driving the car? Are you driving 100%? 95, 90?
Somewhere around there. We'll see how hard I can go if I got to, but when I had the lead there, I certainly was taking care of my tires, and Elliott seemed to be doing the same, and then he kind of fell off, so that helped us. And Gibson and Ray and all the boys that are looking over the tires say we haven't had a right front problem yet, and I guess that's, you tell me, Benny, has everybody been blowing those, or have we seen some right rears too?
Well, Michael, they've been blowing front tires, but most everyone is blistering the right rears just a little bit.
10-4. How about that USC Notre Dame game? That was good, wasn't it?
Man, that was unbelievable. Michael, thank you so much. Good luck to you.
I don't think he's
I don't know about you, man.
Coke, though.
Oh, he did. You know, Benny reminded him. He's like, you gotta say Coke, and he was like, oh yeah, Coca-Cola, Bass Pro Shop, Remington. I'm like, I just want a Remington gun while I drink my Coke while I'm at Bass Pro Shops.
Freedom with my Coke.
But, you know, the red flag is withdrawn. We're back under caution. And then we finally go back under green on lap 260. But we don't get very far. Just 10 laps into that run, Scott Riggs in the 10 blows the right front tire and smacks the wall. And now we're back under caution. This time it's a 12 caution, which is currently the record for a 500-mile race at Lowe's Motor Speedway. And if I'm not mistaken, they did set a record for the Coke 600 with the most cautions, too, in May, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was 22.
Yeah.
Race. Yeah, so we're at 34 cautions in 2 races at Lowe's Motor Speedway in 1 year.
Two cup races, so.
Not great, Bob. Not great. We're going to go back to green on lap 276. And again, top 9, they stayed out on the track on old tires. Casey Kane is our leader, driving one of the best paint schemes of all time. That blue and white Mopar car, I love that paint scheme. It's dope.
I think it looked better in 2004, but it's really cool that like they rolled out the Mopar paint scheme every time during the fall Charlotte race. Always looked good. But unfortunately, we're going to have trouble in turn 4 this time. It's Jamie McMurray as he gets loose, or Michael Waltrip touches him. I don't know. It's a very weird circumstance that's going to happen here because McMurray and Waltrip make contact. They wreck, collecting Dale Jarrett. Carl Edwards squeaks by, amazingly. But at the same time, just before that, Robbie Gordon blew up in turns 3 and 4. And NASCAR actually was throwing the caution for Robbie's blown number 7. But unfortunately, Waltrip and McMurray wrecked at the same time. It's just a heartbreaking moment for everybody, man.
Yeah, it's like things just snowballed, you know? I hate when that happens, when there's like 2 separate incidents at the same time. But again, Robbie Gordon fan here. 2005 was heartbreaking. It was really hard to watch him have, I think it was like 10 or 12 motor failures, but it's really heartbreaking for Michael Waltrip though, because he had a rocket ship, man, but his spirits are high after the wreck.
And Michael just walked to the infield care center. First off, describe what took place coming through 3 and 4.
I think I blew a left rear tire because I thought it blew up, and then Jamie ran into the back of me and spun me around, and then while I was spinning around,
there he goes.
I was revving the motor up, so I was like, well, it didn't blown up, but
there you go. There's the replay.
It blew a left rear right there, and I think that's what happened. The left rear was tore off of it, and I don't think what Jamie did could have caused all that. And I think when my left rear blew, I turned into him. It's really hard to tell, but when the car stopped, I looked at the Napa Auto Parts Chevy, and I needed to go down to Napa and give me a new left rear tire.
Well, the good thing is, though, you're okay. And we can tell you're okay because you've got everything in there, including your 3rd sip.
And so I got to go now, right?
You got to go now.
Bye.
So it's lucky number 13, 13th caution. We're setting records just like in May. But, who's the real record setter here is Jimmy Johnson. He's going to come down pit road under this caution. He's going to give up 2nd position. But you know what? Chad Knaus is smart. He's like, Jimmy, I need to give you 4 fresh tires, okay? But also, we need to make sure that voltage issue is not really concerning you anymore because it's important. If I'm not mistaken, BP even mentions at one point that drivers say that they're running fans for their tires to help cool them. So probably Chad has a lot of those little fans and hookups in the car. So he's making sure that everything's good. And right now, it seems like the issue is solved.
We're going to go to restart now. 48 to go, James. Less than 50 laps, and it's a triple charger battle up front between Casey Kane, Casey Mears, and Ryan Newman battling up front with those Dodges. 17 laps later, Casey Kane, he's going to lose a tire in 3 and 4. He doesn't hit anything, though, just slow on the track, but NASCAR throws the caution for possible debris. So there's 28 to go now. Everyone comes into the pits for what they're hoping will be their final pit stop of the day. But the question is, do you take 2 tires or do you take 4?
Well, that's why crew chiefs get paid the big bucks, because I'm not going to make that decision. But after the pit stops, Ricky Rudd, Joe Nemechek, Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, they're your top 5. They all took 2 tires. Now, Kurt Busch is 6th. He's the first driver to take 4 tires and line up single file. But right behind him, Jeremy Mayfield, another Chase contender, he actually took 2. So Kurt could be in the catbird seat right now.
And at this point, before the final restart, we get a little graphic come up letting us know that the drivers have been in the cars for nearly 4.5 hours at this point of the race. That's like Coke 600 numbers, James, and they still have 40 laps to go, or 28 laps to go. So man, they're getting killed. They're probably dying of heat exhaustion. It's incredible.
Well, NASCAR is really an endurance racing series. People just don't recognize it. But actually, we're going to get a restart with 22 laps to go, Mark, with Ricky Rudd, the Rooster. He's your leader, but, he's got some trouble right away. He's not getting going. Joe Nemechek's underneath him trying to get the lead. Jimmy Johnson's right up behind him for second. Rudd's got a tire going down. He's going to try to get to the pits. But Johnson, unfortunately, made contact with Ricky Rudd on the back straightaway just when he was trying to get by him. Pushed that fender in on his left front tire, and he's got a massive tire rub, smoking every time he goes through the corners. Luckily, the fender clears, the rub subsides, and Johnson is able to go and make a charge at Joe Nemechek.
And Kurt Busch, the 97, James mentioned he was the first guy who took 4 tires. Now he's moved his way up to 3rd from that 6th starting spot, and now he's joined Nemechek and Johnson, making a 3-car race for the lead. Jimmy holds off Kurt, though, and manages to get by Nemechek with 9 laps to go as Nemechek slides back to 4th behind the killer bees of Busch and Biffle.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we get another caution late in the race. Rusty Wallace put in a 3-wide position, gets loose in the middle as he comes off turn 2, spins it on the back straightaway, makes a little contact with the outside wall, but we get a caution that's going to set us up for a green-white checkered finish. Single file, they line up, and we have 2 laps to decide it. Who's it going to be? Well, Jimmy Johnson's going to lead him to the green, and Busch and Biffle, man, they give him everything they've got. These drivers are driving harder than they have all race long, but Jimmy Johnson wouldn't be denied in his house. Johnson is going to take the checkered flag and beat Kurt Busch and Greg Biffle and take an impressive 4th consecutive victory at Lowe's Motor Speedway. Wow, Mark, that Aflac trivia question just kind of came back into fruition right there.
Yeah, we got to add an asterisk to that. And best part of the final results, though, is you get Joe Nemechek in 4th and Mark Martin in 5th. So Martin,
suck it, Mark. Joe beat you. Yeah, suck it.
You needed to pass him a 41st time, and you couldn't do it. So
I think that could have been like the 80th time at that point in the race. But wow, it's kind of cool. You hear Mark's frustrated about racing Joe Nemechek, but it's like, hey man, Joe's just got a better car than you this week, and that was really cool to see back then. Just people would have a car that handled one week, and then sometimes you're just like out to lunch the next week, but you just never knew who would be competitive.
And we got to look at the aftermath of this race. Now, it was a crazy race, but it really shook up the chase, man. Tony Stewart had a 75-point lead coming in. That's now gone. He's tied with Jimmy Johnson for the lead. Now, he has the lead because he has more overall race wins that season, so that's the tiebreaker. But the chase field is now separated by just 142 points from 1st to 10th, which is less than 1 race, which is incredibly close.
It is, but if you're a Tony Stewart fan, if you're Greg Zipadelli, or even Joe Gibbs, you look back on this race in particular, and you see that you took a horrible night, crashing out of the lead, and salvaged a 25th place finish. That's making the best out of a worse situation, and those are what championships are made out of, okay? If Tony Stewart doesn't come back and finish 25th, he is not your 2005 Nextel Cup champion.
And that was what you did at the time. You fixed your car and you went back out and you passed all the crashed cars and you got some extra points. Like, obviously now with the way things work with the crash clock and all that, it's not something that happens anymore. But back then that was common to see taped up cars with the front end cut off, look like modifieds driving around. Points were so important. These points battles were so close.
Yeah, I'd say like the way Stewart's car was damaged, it's kind of similar to what we see with the crash clock today. Though he was missing his rear bumper, which that wouldn't fly nowadays. But even still, the fact that they were able to beat down that rear deck lid, kind of reshape the spoiler to give it some downforce on the rear, get him back out there. I mean, they even had to do this under green at points. Just never give up. Greg Zipadelli being a great leader, coaching his team, and Tony, he wasn't happy at the end of it, but you know what? He made the best out of the worst situation, like we said. And the thing is, he has a really great perspective at the end of this race, because it was a crazy race plagued with issues, but Tony Stewart has no blame to place on anybody.
Knowing what we know about Tony now, you'd think he would have got out of the car and blamed Goodyear, but
well, especially before that point, because he was very very quick to speak his mind at this point. But I think you even see a mature Tony Stewart at this point. Kind of weird to say mature Tony Stewart, but he was very mature when he got out of the car. Yeah, he gave Dave a hard time a little bit for that first question, just because he wasn't in the mood. But beyond that, I feel like he salvaged a really good interview, and he definitely gave that great insight. You can't put one blame on anybody for what happened in this race. It's like when we look back at the 2008 Brickyard 400. That race, in my opinion, was worse than this race. At least in this race, we could go 20, 30 laps before there was an incident. That race, you couldn't even go 10 laps without an incident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that. I remember watching that and thinking, man, like it's just going to be competition caution after competition caution. And like, this is no way to live. And this race, looking back, it's a bit of a shambles because of what happened. But like Tony Stewart said, you can't blame anyone. It's a snowball effect of so many different things. They thought they were doing the right thing by grinding the racetrack, getting rid of the bumps rather than do a full repave. And it unfortunately, like Wally said, it wasn't weathered enough. They needed to do it in the off season, have some cold weather come through, some rain, weather the track down. It was a one groove racetrack. What happened with McMurray and Waltrip is like McMurray said, you get underneath somebody and you just get loose and you lose the nose of the car and you wreck, even without the tire problem. So, and just being a very green track, you're going to see tire wear at an all-time high. So you can't really blame Goodyear. They worked with what they had. We saw something very similar in a recent F1 race at Silverstone. It was like the tires weren't lasting, and we can't blame them. These are under unprecedented circumstances with no testing, with what's gone on this year. So it's just unfortunate. That's all you can really say. It's a bummer. And we wrecked a lot of great race cars, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, and I think the best perspective was Sterling Marlin's. Even though he was one of the victims, just that insight of like, hey man, it's like the tire wars back in 1988. You got to understand when to push and when not to. And obviously Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus were smart enough to say, hey, if we're having a quiet day and we're having issues, Jimmy, you don't need to get up to the front. Let's fix our car, make sure we're good, and I'll make sure I get you up to the front so you are in position at the end. And, everything about this race, it's just great to see, because when you understand the storylines, there are just so many great storylines from this race. And even looking through the top 10, Mark, what I love about looking through this top 10 on this race is seeing so many names of non-chasers who are able to finish in the top 10. Obviously, Joe Nemechek scoring a top 5, finishing 4th. That's like my highlight from this race.
Oh, yeah. Man, when Joe won at Kansas in 2004, when he like upset the chase contenders and won, that was amazing. I love when the non-chase guys win. Dale Jarrett won at Talladega 2 weeks before this race. Just upset everybody. I love when that happens.
Yeah, and Joe had a strong car in the Coke 600. Like, I was devastated when he had that flat, I believe it was a left rear tire, and it just crashed with 8 to go, because it was his race to win. And it was just a shame, because he's in really competitive equipment at this point. Like Mark Martin's upset that he's racing Joe Nemechek, but hey, you're racing Joe Nemechek, who's running a Hendrick engine in his car that has like Hendrick, engineers that give them notes. So it's like, he's in good equipment. But it's a good race, man. I like what this race kind of presented. It's a shame that these drivers had to be in this situation where it was like Russian roulette, and they literally were kind of taking their own lives in their own hands at points. But honestly, the drivers who were smart enough to understand when to push and when not to push, and the crew chiefs who were smart enough to not overly aggressively just set up the car, especially with what they can do with the right front, with camber and tire pressures. Those were the drivers and teams that ended up making it to the end of this race and had the best finishes.
It really played right into Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus's hands as well. All the cautions that happened really allowed them to work on that issue, and they were never that far up, 27th, 28th. Okay, bring it down. Let's look under the hood. Let's make sure everything's good and put him back out, and he was able to push at the right time. And it worked out really well. Chad Knaus is a wizard, right? He's one of the greatest crew chiefs of all time, arguably the greatest crew chief of all time, 7 championships. At this time, none, but soon, Chad, you're going to get yours. It played right into his hands, and it's even Robbie Gordon said in his interview, he said, we were just riding around, watching all the tires blow, biding our time, and I think that lots of teams were trying to play that strategy, so it's what you have to adjust and you have to adapt, and it was an interesting race, and James, I think it's time that we decide a rating for this race. What would you rate this race out of 10?
Well, I mean, that Notre Dame game just really ruined it because we had no pre-race show. But it was interesting because, as we talked throughout this review, everything that would have been showcased in the pre-race show was slightly sprinkled throughout the race. So yep. I think NBC did a good job. The producers did a good job of understanding where they could put some things and fill some stuff. It's a timeless race, though, because, you, for example, all the Michael Waltrip interviews, unfortunately, the one after he gets wrecked was funny as ever. Michael Waltrip's eccentric personality really makes this funny and enjoyable, even though it was weird. I gotta give it a 7 because I just like 2005. It's interesting to look back at it now without having that perspective of being a upset Jeff Gordon fan because your driver is knocked out of this race, and then now Jimmy Johnson, who's his protege, goes and wins. But it's a good race. You have really great people in the top 10 who aren't chasers, like Joe Nemechek, Denny Hamlin scoring an 8th place finish, and Ricky Rudd, who bounced back and finished 9th after his issues late in the race. I mean, really great storylines. I got to give it about a 7, though.
I'm going to be right there with you at 7. I think it's shambles, unfortunately, but
you're just saying that because that's Robbie Gordon's number.
Of course, 100%. And, or 7A if it was like whatever NASCAR Heat game that came out where he was 7A. But yeah, I'll give it a 7 because they did a really good job, like you said, during the broadcast of sprinkling things in and giving us a full package, although we did not get a pre-race. I was just really impressed, too, by the fact that so many drivers were in really high spirits after crashing. Like Dale Jr., I got a rocket ship. It was great. I'm excited for Atlanta. It's like, well, I guess he's got nothing to lose because not in a chase. So, but Michael Waltrip as well is just fun. And teams adapted. We got to see really interesting strategy in a race where I thought by lap 150 there would be no strategy. And we got 2 tire stops. We got to stay out on the racetrack. We had a weird top 10, like you said, Joe Nemechek. We had David Stremme in the top 5 at one point as a rookie. Denny Hamlin was running 3rd with 50 laps to go. There could have been some interesting implications. And Jimmy Johnson wins running a preview of his 2006 paint scheme. So cool.
Yeah, that was really cool too, because that was another aspect too about this race. We mentioned it lightly with Kevin's paint scheme being so nice and with Casey's, but these night races always brought really special paint schemes, and for Lowe's being their preview home base, it was a really good opportunity for them to be like, hey, this is what our new car is going to be looking like. And I thought it was pretty snazzy looking car.
Yeah, it was dope, man. When they added the black to it and everything, kind of
and the yellow.
Yeah.
That screams Jimmy Johnson, I'm going to come and win 5 straight championships kind of ride. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It was good, man. I enjoyed it, and 2005 is my favorite NASCAR season. It was just the perfect season, ups and downs and so many different emotions, and Jimmy Johnson's coming out party, and we had Greg Biffle's coming out party. It was awesome. It was so great. And this is a classic race, classic mile and a half. This is a mile and a half cookie cutter race that was super, super enjoyable. Everyone complains about the 1.5 mile tracks. This race was amazing. It was so fun. We still had decent racing, and the sound of those engines back then, those Gen 4 cars, man, when they play Elliott Sadler's pole run, buddy.
I think what the best part about the sound is the fact that the exhaust is sticking right out to the fans. So that's all you hear when they come by the mics. And it just sounds amazing. I mean, my impression's not that great, but another aspect too about this race, you mentioned cookie cutter 1.mile tracks. Charlotte is not a cookie cutter track. You see the way these cars bounce and move and the way the drivers have to hustle them through the corner compared to the race 1 week before at this time during the schedule, Kansas. That is a cookie cutter 1.5 mile track. That is smooth. There's not a whole lot to it, but Charlotte was just so crazy. You gotta really work the car. If you were on the outside, you had an advantage. If you're on the bottom, you got loose. It's just good racing back then at Charlotte. I love that track. It's so cool, and it's really kind of cool to watch these older Gen 4 races where you don't have that whole ride height system and all that, and you get to really see these cars work as they just drive around the track.
Yeah, man, these are my favorite cars ever in NASCAR history, and it's my favorite season. So I'll give it a 7. So it's an average of 7. We both gave it a 7. That's
easy average right there.
Easy average, no big math needed there. But fun race, and let us know what you guys thought. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments. And I thought it was a good race to look at. I picked it because of the tire woes, and then we ended up doing our research. We're like, man, this race was awesome. Rewatching it, so. It was a nice tidbits in there, and it was a fun experience to go back and watch this one again.
Yeah, the tire issue is a tire issue for sure, but like Tony said, you can't blame Goodyear at all. You can't even blame Humpy Wheeler and Charlotte Motor Speedway for the aggressive move to try to pave or grind down the track during the summer instead of waiting till the off season. It just happened. We have to take this race, look at it, learn from it, and just apply it going forward. And I think that's the biggest thing is I hope everyone kind of learned a lot about this race and really what we should see in the future too. Because I think a big thing, Mark, is rain tires. They're always mentioned rain tires. Oh, what if rain tires are on an oval? Well, you're gonna have to see a race like this, man, where you have drivers who are not pushing 100% because if you push 100%, your equipment,
you're gonna end up like Tony Stewart. You're gonna end up in the
Okay. It's not gonna last, man. You got first to finish. You must finish.
Mm-hmm. That's what Jimmy Johnson did. Just rode around all day, 2-tire stop, right place, right time, wins the race. That's the way to do it, man.
It's kind of like how he sold the All-Star show, like in the future. You know what I mean? With Chad Canals just being so sneaky and creative. He's not just creative with like the way he builds a car. He's very creative with the way he calls a race as well.
And that's the thing. I love when there's strategy involved. I think with, what we have now with stages, it's kind of taking some of that away. You still have it with like, well, let's maximize stage points. So we'll pit at this point, those kind of things. But I kind of miss that, especially on the road courses. I really miss the really interesting strategies that we used to get. So it's so much fun, James, to go back and watch races from this era. They're a lot of fun. Check out some of these races on YouTube, folks. I can't remember who uploaded this one that we got to thank. Let me just...
Yeah, try to find the whole one. I know there's 2 versions. There's the parts version, which I'm assuming the whole one might be the all the parts versions put together, which, I appreciate both. I remember when YouTube was like just starting to get a whole lot of races on there. They would all be uploaded in parts because YouTube didn't really want you to upload long format video onto their platform quite yet. But nowadays we have that ability. But yeah, it's a struggle.
Austin LaPlante who uploaded it, and it was originally uploaded in parts by King Corvo 88. And if you're a fan of watching old races, you know both those names. These are great folks that upload races. Thank you so much for uploading that so we could take a look at it.
Yeah, it was a great race. Thanks to NBC for doing what they did to work around the whole football issue. I know I was very critical about it, still always will be, but you can't blame them for the box they're put in either. They did a great job, and they presented everything they could in the broadcast, and it was great.
It's Notre Dame's fault. I'm sorry. Yeah. We're on NBC.
Is that technically God's fault then? But I think the biggest thing that I love about this race was the creative way they did the Aflac duck. Like they just found that guy walking around in a duck suit. Really? It's like, oh, this is a perfect segue. Cue the duck.
Remember, kids, you got to have a gimmick if you're going out for a night on the town. Duck suit. So
you might have a couple beers involved in that, which we don't condone at all.
No, great race though. Wally, Benny, Bill Weber. It's everything you could ever want for that era. So lots of fun.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
We have AB as well in the pits. You know, I don't think Alan Bestwick gets enough credit for being a pit reporter. He's a really great pit reporter.
You know,
yeah.
He's better than Bill Weber. I think that's why they've transitioned Weber to the booth and moved Alan back down to pit road.
Yeah, no offense, Weber, but I mean, he comes up with some really creative stuff. He's a really good, like, eloquent speaker and writer as well, so he's good. And obviously good to see Marty Schneider, Dave Burns, and Matt Yoakum as well. Still people that are hustling and working the beat on pit road today. It's cool to see that they were in this race 15 years ago, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like these guys never go away. They're still around doing their thing, and they will probably as long as they can. You know, broadcasting. That's why it's so hard to break into the field, James, to get jobs. These guys never leave. You know?
Well, they're so good too. That's the thing. You know, when you're that good, you're demanded. So you know, wasn't it Matt Yoakum was doing Fox and NBC?
Yeah, I know.
At
he
this
was
point
like
too?
the turncoat halfway through the season. You just go straight to NBC and like you freelancer. Love it. Hey.
Yeah, he was just that good though, man.
Ogling, making money, making it rain. So, but no, it was a fun race to talk about. Thanks so much for the folks who uploaded it. And thanks as always to our partners at Blue Emu for supporting our podcast and everything that we do. Check out the stuff that James has been doing on Blue Emu's channel. It's really cool. We do the maximum strength move of the race every Monday. It's a lot of fun. Check out at Blue Emu 1 on Twitter, Instagram, and you can see all the stuff James has been doing over there. So.
Yeah, thank you so much to Blue Emu for the opportunity to give me a platform to talk about NASCAR nerding and other stuff other than our platform. Mark and I have really worked hard to create here. You know, it's kind of showing the fruits of our labor that we're starting to get more of a push out there, more of our ability to just present work, and that's the whole thing with this. We're just trying to present people not just with the race, but with some educational knowledge and some facts, and we hopefully. You guys learned something and gals learned something from this race and from this podcast. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button, like as well, hit the bell to get notifications. If you're on Spotify, make sure you do something, whatever Spotify does. All the other platforms, give us some reviews. Tell us what we should do, what we're not doing. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. We'll see you in the next episode.